and villages that lined the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The herbicide Agent Orange was used to kill the jungle Vietnamese guerrilla took cover. Agent Orange was later shown to cause serious illness, including cancer. Most US soldiers were inexperienced draftees, unprepared to fight guerrillas in an unfamiliar tropical climate. The Vietcong seemed to have an endless reserve of highly motivated soldiers who penetrate the South by going through Laos and Cambodia. The Tet Offensive. On January 31st, 1968, during a ceasefire of honor of the Vietnamese New Year celebration of Tet, the Vietcong and North Vietnam forces ambushed American bases and South Vietnamese villages in an attack called the Tet Offensive. This attack ran all along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They didn't make any gains, but the Vietnam War was getting costly. The counterculture. Many people thought the US didn't belong in another country's civil war. The draft was controversial. Wealthy individuals and college students could put up, so poor and undereducated minority were drafted at a larger proportion. Young people turned to the counterculture movement led by hippies and dedicated to peace, therefore to put up counterculture, a culture that is in opposition to counter to the mainstream culture. The My Lai massacre of the March 16, 1968, during which American soldiers murdered hundreds of Vietnamese civilians, drove more people to the anti-war movement. Some young men declared themselves conscientious objector. Some excluded from military service on the group of moral opposition to war. Others burned their draft card or went to Canada to avoid fighting. Students for a Democratic Society led protests on college campuses. They were all accused of being unpatriotic. Half a million people attended the counterculture event called the Woodstock Music and Arts Fair, better known as the Woodstock Festival. On August 1969, concert was advertised as 3 days of peace and music. The election of 1968. President Johnson announced he wouldn't run for president again because of stalemate in past stalemate in Vietnam. 3 people were in the running for the Democratic nomination, including Vice President Herbert Humphrey, anti-war Minnesota Senator Eugene McCarthy, and JFK's brother Robert F. Kennedy, a senator from New York. RFK made a strong start, but in June 6, 1968, he was assassinated by a Palestinian Shahpan because of his support for Israel. Herbert Humphrey won the nomination. The Republican nominee Richard M. Nixon won the presidency by appealing to a silent majority of patriot Americans who wanted the war to end but didn't like the counterculture. Nixon promised he'd lead the country out of Vietnam without a shameful retreat. Nixon pledged peace with honor. Alabama Governor George C. Wallace ran a segregationist third-party platform and won over 13% of the popular vote. In 1963, Wallace had tried to block desegregation at the University of Alabama. In his old age, he apologized for his former beliefs. Nixon's Vietnamese. On the advice of National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger, Nixon began to withdraw soldiers from Asia and promised to end the draft, gradually turning over the fighting to the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. ARVN was called the Vietnamization of the war. But at the same time, Nixon secretly bombed Cambodia and sent troops there to cut off the Ho Chi Minh Trail. When Americans found out, there were protests, most of them peaceful, but at Kent State University in Ohio, 4 students were killed by the National Guard, now called the Kent State shootings or the Kent State massacre. Another protest turned violent at Jackson State University. In 1971, secret documents known as the Pentagon Papers were leaked to the New York Times. They revealed what people suspected. The country had been lied to about how much the U.S. was involved in the war. They also revealed that the U.S. has no idea how to bring about victory in Vietnam. In the presidential election of 1972, Democrat George McGovern ran on an anti-war platform, but Nixon still won in a landslide of 49 out of 50 states. Nixon had withdrawn almost all American combat troops and drastically reduced American casualty. Progress at that point was based on body count and not military objective. The 26th Amendment, 1971. Why was the voting age lowered to 18? Because the guy could be drafted at 18. The slogan was "Old enough to fight, old enough to vote." Out of Vietnamese. In part, peace accord of January 27, 1973, the U.S. agreed to withdraw from Vietnam, and North Vietnam agreed to return American prisoners of war. But fighting continued between the North and the South Vietnamese. In January 1975, the North launched full-scale invasion of South under the belief that the U.S. would not return. Hundreds of thousands of South Vietnamese fled the country. The refugees were called boat people because many escaped by boat. The war finally ended on April 13, 1975, when the communists captured Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam, and renamed it Ho Chi Minh City. The nation was united as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Vietnam aftershocks. The war cost 58,000 American lives. Hundreds of thousands were wounded, and others were classified as MIA, missing in action, and were never found. Some soldiers suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Civilian confidence in the government was low. Dissatisfaction influenced Congress to pass the War Power Act in 1973, limiting how the president could use military force without the declaration of war by Congress.